Okay, this is in response to JL's question about potentially night vision tube or night vision system, image intensification night vision systems degrading over time based off nothing more than just straight up shelf life. There's no data that is commonly out there that shows that goggles have got a shelf life. The government mil-spec contract requires 10,000 hours minimum of tube life while the tubes are being powered, basically operational use. So if you do that, if you do the math on that, you end up with like 800 and something days of usage, or over 2 years if you run your nods 12 hours a day. That's powered up, whatever. And that's not what his question is pertaining to. His question is pertaining to placing a unit in some type of long-term storage in a safe or whatever, and then if you broke it out a decade later, would the tubes or would the system as a whole operate less effectively than it did 10 years prior? And Sam and a couple other guys have chimed in and said that they don't know of any environmental factors that shelf life would have a negative effect. I tend to agree with that, with the one kind of caveat, and because I don't have any scientific data points to back it up, I don't know where that time would even begin. I'd have to hypothesize a decade or more after sitting. But the wild card for me, in my limited knowledge of how night vision systems, the image intensification tube works, I wouldn't have any concerns about the microchannel plate. If it's not doing its job, powered up and magnifying, and then converting what am I trying to say here? I don't think the issue would be on the front end. I don't think that you would have an issue with the photocathode or microchannel plate. My only concern would be the phosphor screen. So the phosphor screen receives magnified electrons from the microchannel plate on the backside, and the actual interaction of these electrons bombarding the phosphor screen creates a reaction which is photonic in nature. The phosphor screen mirrors the electron input on the backside with photonic output on the ocular lens side of the night vision system. It's kind of been described to me that reaction is similar to photoluminescence. So if we talk about glow-in-the-dark luminescent tape that you see, marking bulkheads on ships, or the cat eyes on the back of a patrol cap, that when you charge them up with light, they give off that energy. So there's some type of chemical reaction that is happening there in that interface between photons coming in and then capturing and releasing photons in the photoluminescence. So because I'm not a night vision engineer, and because I do not manufacture phosphor plates, if there's some type of reaction that is happening over time at the molecular level, does going into a dormant state mean that when it's required to provide a reaction later on, in this case conversion of electrons into photonic output on the other side after it's been charged with the electron bombardment, would we see a degradation in that ability to have that reaction over time, just because at the atomic level or whatever, the system just has not been exercised, or the shelf life degradation just results in a diminished reactive state. So how would that manifest itself? If the photonic output is a factor of that conversion process of electron input on the phosphor surface, then one could hypothesize that a phosphor screen that is not operating at peak performance would have a reduced photonic output. In my mind, how I think this is going on, that would manifest itself. It would look like a system that has a manual gain that has the gain turned way down, and when you look through it, everything is still clear. You're still able to resolve images, but the screen output, the green TV, just looks very dim. It just looks dimmer because the gain has been turned down. Normally turned down in high light input, ambient light input environments, so that you're not overstressing the system. There's no need to amplify on an order of magnitude when plenty of existing photons of either visual or near IR energy are present, photonic energy are present. So one could hypothesize that if there is a degradation of the phosphor screen just due to time, that after a certain time, and I would absolutely have to say it's over a decade, just due to the fact that if there was a shelf life degradation that within the operational life cycle of a government issued piece of night vision equipment was a factor, the government would put it in a spec. And I know of no spec on the Omni IDIQ that talks about shelf life usage or anything of that nature. So I am strictly mothballing here for the context of this hypothetical environment that JL is talking about, where what would a set of nods that you broke out of a climate-controlled environment after 2 decades, like if there was diminishment, what would it look like? And if there was, I believe it would look like reduced phosphor photonic output. So a dimmer screen, bottom line, which you could fix with turning up your gain if you had a manual gain environment, nods or something like that. And I could be completely off on the science here, but based off how I've been educated on what is going on when the gerbil is running around on the wheel inside of your magic goggles, if there were a weak point in that system of items not powered and sitting at rest, I believe the reactive properties of the phosphor screen would be that point. So, just my thoughts on the matter. Could be accurate, could be completely accurate, could be inaccurate, but based on reasonable science, that's just, as I'm trying to dissect that's all I got for you. So take that information and do with it what you will. If someone out there that is smarter about the conversion of electrons to photons at the phosphor screen knows that it is not in fact some type of chemical reaction that is happening, that the phosphor screen is converting those electrons to light using some other process that is absolutely not going to be diminished over time, then throw that out there in the comments section. I'm always trying to get smarter about this technology, having not ever been kind of formally educated as an engineer or scientist, having only talked to engineers and scientists and breaking down some pretty complex scientific processes and trying to explain them to me in layman's terms so that I could kind of wrap my head around what was going on with this kit and how it actually works. So there you go. That's all I got. I'm driving in traffic. It sucks. Hope you guys are enjoying your weekend. It's Chuck. I'm out.